The CEO of the deadly Titan sub, Stockton Rush, once lost control of the sub for an hour during a dive after it became wedged in another wreckage. Rush threw the joystick controller to a safety engineer in an effort to save him. Rush and a few others were examining the Andrea Doria's wreckage when it happened in 2016. After colliding with another ship, the Andrea Doria perished in 1956. Not far south of Nantucket, the wreckage is located approximately 250 feet underwater. There were a few customers on board, along with engineer David Lochridge, who was later sacked by Rush for persistently voicing worries about the safety of the Titan. Rush insisted on taking control of the Cyclops 1 and directing it to land close to the debris. He disregarded advice on where to land and accidentally buried the sub in the shipwreck. He ultimately gave in by handing Lochridge the joystick so he could lead the group back to the surface after an hour of stress, and only after one of the high-paying visitors pleaded with him. "Give him the controller," he shouted. The story further highlights Rush's adamant refusal to acknowledge his own flaws or those of his prized endeavor. On June 18, he accompanied 77-year-old French pilot Paul-Henri Nargeolet as they descended to the Titanic debris site with a group of 3 visitors. The ship imploded underwater, instantly killing the sailors and igniting a multi-day search and rescue effort. Numerous anecdotes and pieces of evidence showing Rush's disregard for safety and concerns have surfaced since the catastrophe. He had disregarded several cautions from others in the deep water community, including those from Lochridge, who had saved the team during the dive in 2016. Lochridge had warned him that his commercial sub was not safe. Likewise, he rejected thermal scanning Titan, which would have revealed hull flaws, in favor of using acoustics to alert the crew of any problems. Rush witnessed a 1/3 scale model of his future 4,000-meter submarine implode at 4,000 psi, or a pressure equivalent to only 2,740 meters, in a pressure chamber in December 2015. 2 years before the Titan was completed. The purpose of the test was to validate that the pressure vessel design is capable of withstanding an external pressure of 6,000 psi corresponding to a depth of about 4,200 meters. At that point, he might have changed his mind, taken a minute to step back, and thought again. Though he didn't. The test, according to a news statement from Oceangate, was a resounding success since it demonstrates that the benefits of carbon fiber are real. Rush didn't even pause in his pace. He attacked David Lochridge, his director of marine operations, head-on as he sprinted straight ahead. Lochridge sold his home in Glasgow and moved to Washington State with his wife and daughter, who was 7 years old, in order to work with Oceangate. Lochridge was an experienced undersea professional, in contrast to many of his new co-workers. He was a submersible and remote-operated vehicle pilot, a marine engineer, and an underwater inspector for the oil and gas business. In order to rescue troops trapped aboard downed military submarines, he had operated rescue submarines for the British Navy. The Titan had almost finished construction by January 2018 and was about to start sea trials. However, Lochridge would have to check the sub and give the go-ahead for diving before that could happen, since that was his contract's duty to ensure the safety of all crew and clients during submersible and surface operations. And it was clear that would not occur. A growing sense of concern had been brewing in Lochridge as he followed the sub's progress. In response to his argument with Oceangate's engineering director Tony Nissen, the company refused to allow Lochridge to inspect the work done on the oxygen system, computers, acrylic viewport, O-rings, and the crucial interface between the sub's carbon fiber hull and titanium end caps. Likewise, it wasn't advisable to combine materials with such extreme pressure tolerance differences. Lochridge's objections were not taken into consideration, so he looked over the Titan as closely as he could. Then he handed a 10-page quality control inspection report outlining the issues with the sub and the measures required to fix them to Rush and other top Oceangate employees. Lochridge wrote on the first page that verbal communication of the key items I have addressed in my attached document have been dismissed on several occasions. So I feel now I must make this report so there is an official record in place. He added that these issues were significant in nature and must be addressed. Titan could not get classed because it was built of the wrong material and it was built the wrong way. Once he made up his mind, he was on a path from which there was no return. More than 24 things were on Lochridge's list of things that needed to be done right away. Components that were zip-tied to the outside of the submarine's shell included batteries that were not properly attached and missing bolts. The Titan's interior was lined with a substance that is highly combustible and petroleum-based, and O-ring grooves that were machined incorrectly, which could allow water intrusion. An entanglement risk was created by the hoistings looping around the sub's exterior, which is particularly dangerous at a wreck site like the Titanic, where pipes, wires and spars protrude from every which way. However, compared to what Lochridge saw on the hull, even those flaws were minor. There was no way to fix the carbon fiber filament, which was clearly disintegrating and was laced with air gaps, delaminations and Swiss cheese holes. The only option was to throw the hull in the trash. Carbon fiber filament is produced under precise conditions. Carbon fibers that are intertwined are twisted around a cylinder, adhered with epoxy, packaged in cellophane, and dried in an oven for 7 days. Perfect consistency is the aim, and any errors are irreversibly baked in. We run the risk of potential interlaminar fatigue due to pressure cycling, because the hull would be seeing such immense pressures not yet experienced on any known carbon-hulled vehicle, Lochridge wrote, especially if we do have imperfections in the hull itself. The hull would need to be scanned with thermal imaging or ultrasound to determine the extent of its flaws. He continued, non-destructive inspection is required to be undertaken and subsequent results provided to myself prior to any in-water man dives commencing, digging in his heels on the scanning. This would highlight any weak points and offer a baseline that could be used later on to monitor for signs of weariness following each dive. It shouldn't be difficult to scan the hull, should it? The hull will be scanned, according to an earlier statement made by Oceangate, Lochridge said in another document. However, the hull was never scanned. The Oceangate engineering team does not plan to obtain a hull scan and does not believe the same to be readily available or particularly effective in any event, the firm's attorney, Thomas Gilman, wrote in March 2018. Rather, Oceangate would depend on acoustic monitoring sensors on the Titan's hull that would emit an alarm when the carbon fiber filaments were audibly breaking. Lochridge's report was clear and technical, written by someone who obviously knew what he was talking about, and it was the kind of thing that, in most businesses, would lead to a promotion. In response, Rush fired Lochridge right away, served him and his wife with a lawsuit for breach of contract, fraud, unjust enrichment, and misappropriation of trade secrets, even though Carol Lochridge didn't work at Oceangate or even in the submersible industry, threatened their immigration status, and demanded that they pay Oceangate's legal costs. Oceangate listed its complaints in the lawsuit. The business claimed that Lochridge had made up a justification for being fired. He had repeatedly refused to accept the veracity of information provided by the company's lead engineer, and repeatedly stated he did not approve of Oceangate's research and development plans, insisting, for example, that the company should obtain a scan of the hull of Titan's experimental vessel prototype in 2016. He had mooned through the large viewing window Tony Nissen and other members of the Oceangate engineering staff through SIC with whom he had been arguing. Lochridge was in a precarious situation due to his current unemployment, the accusations made by Oceangate, and mounting legal expenses. He filed a countersuit for wrongful firing and gave the U.S. Occupational Safety and Health Administration his inspection report. The Coast Guard then received it from OSHA. After Lochridge countersued for wrongful termination, Oceangate ultimately reached a settlement with him. To make sure he doesn't violate the terms of the settlement, Lochridge has kept quiet since the Titan accident. No action has been brought against Oceangate or its still working staff by the relatives of the visitors who perished. All of them acknowledged the danger by signing waivers before to the voyage. Exactly 2 weeks after the catastrophe, the company was shut down. What do you think of Stockton Rush? Share your thoughts in the comment box below. Please subscribe to Weather Collapse if you want to know more, and be updated on the latest news about natural calamities or disasters happening all over the world, and don't forget to like today's video. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.